when I graduated from high school, you know, it was a real depression. I mean, kids had cardboard in their shoes because they couldn't afford to have the soles repaired. And I can remember when I graduated from high school, this girl, she asked another girl if she could borrow her silk stockings because she wanted to go to a certain party or a dance or something. And I thought, oh, no, not to. She doesn't know how soon a pair of silk stockings can get a run in them at that. And it costs a lot of money for a pair of silk stockings. And I don't, you know, I still think about how much, you know, things cost and how poor the people were. And I can remember I had a brand new pencil, and this girl took it. And her dad had, or her dad or her granddad had a little grocery store, and she could have gotten a new pencil out of there, I thought. She didn't have to take mine. I can remember, you know, things were real tight. My dad was losing money. I mean, he had interest in something like 13 lumber yards. And he was a wholesale broker. And so he had closed down the main yards that he had. He had one in Anacortes, and I can remember when the manager's wife was supposed to take the money to the bank, and when I guess it was something like $1,200 that was cash, she claimed she got robbed. And my dad figured out she was never robbed. Mm-hmm. She helped herself. So they closed, that was closed too. And so he didn't have but one lumber yard left. I mean, in Everett he had one lumber yard. But he had his office, and he finally, I had graduated from high school, and I said, I don't want to be a nurse, and I don't want to be, there was two things, a teacher. I said, and it costs money to go to college, and I don't think I'll go. And I asked for a job in the linen department store, thinking I could do that. And I never heard from the man. And my mother told me years later that that manager told my dad that I had the job, and my dad said, give it to somebody who needs it more. So I didn't get the job, and so there I was, and I wasn't going to stay home, so I went back to high school, and I took French and something else. Oh, I could get in a typing class because they wouldn't let me take typing because I wasn't a business major, but I liked bookkeeping very much. And so I'd had bookkeeping, but I didn't have any typing skills. So I got to, you know, by going to school, I could learn the typewriter.
Right.
And I'm glad I got the French too, but so it got to be April, and my dad said he'd let his secretary go, and I could go to work for him. And so that's the way I started, and so pretty soon I was running it. And I never thought my dad would say I was running it, but he said to me, well, you've been running it for years, he said, when I said I was going to quit or something. But anyway, he sold it in the end. But I'm glad I had that opportunity.
So that would have been in the early 30s.
Pardon?
So that would have been like 1933 or?
Well, let's see. I graduated in 32, so in 33, I graduated in 32, and 33 I went to work for him. And so 30, then my mother moved to Everett. Well, what we did, my dad and I were staying in a house. Somebody owed him money. And so we each had a bedroom and a place for eating, and I could use the kitchen for cooking. So, but he wasn't there very much, but I was. And then
So he had the lumber yard there, but he was also wholesaling lumber to other lumber yards?
yeah, that's what his primary job was. Was lumber. But he was living in Seattle and having a big time. That's really what he was doing. And he didn't drink, but he had a lot of lady friends. Somehow, I don't know what his purpose was, he got me a job in the Bellingham Sash and Door Factory, in the office there. And I was a assistant bookkeeper. Well, the main bookkeeper, he didn't like it very well that I was there. He tried to find fault with me, but I was pretty smart in the lumber game, so he couldn't really say that. And there was a Dutchman there. Well, he had come from Holland, but he was the architect. And I talked with him a little, and his parents lived in London. So he gave, I don't know, it was one summer I could ride with him, which was a lot better for me than taking the bus. And then I'd have to walk from downtown out to the Sash and Door Factory. But anyway, I had worked there. How was that? Things weren't going well at all. And so when I was working there, then there was a big strike. And so that was April, and I went back to work for my dad. And by then, business had started to pick up better. And then the whole family moved to Everett. Well, frankly, my dad had lost the house because he had bought the foxes from somebody and mortgaged the house to pay for the foxes.
The foxes?
Huh?
What foxes?
Well, I guess you call them silver-tipped foxes, and they raised them for scarves for the ladies. Well, he bought these foxes, and by then he had I don't know how come he made this trip to New York with this lady that sort of got him involved in these fox business. But Uncle Ernie was to take care of those foxes. They weren't doing very good here, and so they should be where they get cold weather. So my dad took a trip to the East Coast with this lady. They even stopped to see my grandparents, my mother's parents in Iowa, and went on to New York. Well, Uncle Ernie was there. Well, that in New York didn't work out very good, so they moved the foxes to Wisconsin. All this is costing money. But my dad's still running around, and I'm operating the business. So, but my mother, it ends up, my mother has to move to Everett, so we live in a rented house. And that goes on for about 2 years. Edith was able to go to college, and things had gotten enough so she could go to college. And so Alan was a 7th grader, and he started school there, and I think we ended up anyway, we wanted to, Fred and I were going to get married a year before we did, but my mom said, would you please wait, because my dad was getting a divorce. And I don't know how this woman was so stupid. She came to the office when I was there working, and she said, oh, you have such a pretty blouse. And I said, yes, my mother made it for me. And she had the nerve to up and marry that old guy. Anyway, but I think she had trouble with him too.